take away the economy from those who rigged it. As I see it, class warfare, the only resort to right wing doom. It's worth it. How to talk to your right wing relatives, friends, and neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willis. Welcome to Politics and Right. My name is Egberto Willis, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the entire United States. And good morning to the entire world receiving our signal via the magic of the internet. Well, folks, we're going to have a great show for you today. As you guys know, this year, well, before we get into that, let's go ahead and throw it to the genius. Notice I didn't say genius today. It's a genius because it's only one person today in the studio, which is El Señor Howard Reynolds. Good morning, Howard. How are you doing today?
Well, good morning, Edbergo. It is Genie, so we only have one of us. Poor Jack is still under the weather. Got a text from him saying he's feeling better, but he's still not up to 100%. We're hoping that he'll be back later on in the week. I have a semi-rant and semi-congratulations to Judge Chang, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He said Doge is operating outside of the Constitution, and Doge is forbidden to go into any other departments. They're shutting Doge down. This judge is saying, no, you can't go into these departments and take these sensitive information. And then Donald Trump says, well, we'll just not send out any Social Security checks until Doge gets access. You can't do that.
No.
You can't do that at all. Okay, well, we're just going to do this. I'm going to stamp my feet and I'm going to pout, and you're just going to be in trouble. No, you are in trouble. It is not us that are in trouble. You are in trouble. Have you seen his job approval ratings? The man is tanking.
Yes, and deservedly so. I mean, when you're hurting, people are gonna eventually realize he was never into it for them. That they were just his tools to get what he has done. And you know what? Like we've spoken about a lot, Howard, the policies that he has affect the entire country, but specifically more so than blue states, more so than Democrats or independents or progressives. It affects the people that supports him because the people that support him have the kinds of jobs and are on more government assistance than anybody else. And
Oh yeah, I know. And Kamala said, you're voting against your own interests. Oh no, we're going to vote for Trump. He's going to make America great again. Well, he's making America a great big mistake, is what he's doing. Yeah, he's going to make us great again, not in the eyes of anybody that has any sense.
Yeah, look, America. Look, I love when folks say "make America great again" because being great means a lot of different things. I mean, when women couldn't vote, was that great? When we couldn't have, when there was no Social Security and people died in poverty, was it great? After the stock market crash and we had soup lines because we had no protections for either poverty or the financial sector, was that great? No, not at all.
Not for Americans, it wasn't.
No, it
And
wasn't.
not for the world either. The world went into the depression because they
Yes.
stopped loaning money to countries. They stopped a lot of things, and then they passed a tariff called, was it Smoot-Hawley?
Smoot-Hawley, yeah.
Yeah, Smoot-Hawley. They passed that, and even the advisors to Hoover said, "Don't do this. This is bad. This is going to really take us down," and it did. And Hoover went, "Oh well, look at that. Yeah, look at that." And now we're saying to Trump, don't pass these tariffs. Don't attack our trading partners because they'll just go away and find something else and we'll be stuck here with a mess. So, oh no, tariffs are great. The most beautiful word there is tariff. How about the most beautiful word there is resignation? I like
know.
that word much
I
better.
like that word. But you know what? It's so funny, Howard. There's one group of folks who are so happy for Trump, and it's the Canadian Liberal Party. because they were 20 points down, and it has given them a resurgence into victory. So now they want to hold elections as soon as April. All thank
Oh,
you, Trump. Trump, it has revived the Liberal Party in Canada. But we have a
yeah.
whole lot to talk about today, my dear brothers. So, anything else you want to add before I jump into the next subject?
That's about it. Certainly, I want Jack to come back here, and I hope he's doing much better if he's listening in this morning. He may be sleeping. If I had that
Yes.
crud, I would be doing the same thing.
Well,
So
thank you for. Yeah,
that
yeah,
all I, that's
yeah,
all I got to add.
yeah. Go ahead, Albert.
Oh, that's all I had to add. That's it.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, folks, first let's give homage to our brother Jack Van Bibber, who's under the weather, but we know Jack is going to be coming back pretty soon. Jack, we love you. We need you here when you are better, because I'm not, I know we love Howard. Howard has his rants too, but we want that little word of wisdom from that raspy, sexy voice. But we know it's coming back pretty soon. Want to welcome Joanne from Los Angeles, California, in the chat, as well as Eric Hayes in the chat. Thank you guys for being here. We have a whole bunch in Substack, but I don't see any specific messages in Substack at this point. Um, Look, folks, I have an interview to play with Amanda Edwards, who is running to replace Sheila Jackson Lee slash uh, Turner, Sylvester Turner. I notice I say replace both of them because that was a 1-2 punch. One dies, our great servant uh, Jackson Lee, and then Turner, another formidable politician here in the Houston area. Two stalwarts in this area that died, one right after the other, again, serving in the same position. And Miss Edwards, Amanda Edwards, is vying for that position. So we did an interview to ask, why are you the best person for this position? And here's the interview. Welcome to another edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being with us today. Today, I'm honored to have once again Amanda Edwards. Amanda Edwards is a native Houstonian, former at-large city council member, attorney, and founder of a community nonprofit that empowers various groups from seniors to women. Amanda is now running to serve the historic 18th Congressional District in the United States Congress. Amanda, welcome to Politics Done Right. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I am doing fine. And it's interesting because you are also on the road. You've already started campaigning. Is that right?
Have already started campaigning on Wednesday. We were very fortunate to have the opportunity to launch our campaign in the community, surrounded by community members. And when we did it, that was intentional because that's actually not just what this campaign is going to be about. That's what this work needs to be about. We're going to put the people over the politics. And right now, there's so much going on in Washington, and people are feeling disconnected. And so you want somebody who can go up and speak up and fight back, but also someone who's going to always have that community first in the forefront. And that's the legacy of service that I've been able to render, but also just my approach to how we build our community so that we realize our full potential in the 18th congressional district.
Well, you are vying to replace Sheila Jackson Lee and Sylvester Turner. Sheila Jackson Lee was a stalwart in the district. She was to be found everywhere in that community. So that community is sort of used to having your congressperson there, accessible and fighting for that community. Sylvester Turner was a newcomer that sadly could not serve his entire term. How do you intend to keep that mantra of that ability to be there in the community? I wonder sometimes a lot of our Congress people don't realize that community engagement is one of the most important parts of being a congressperson.
That's my background. I started off in college as a community building and social change fellow. So I learned at a very a very early point that you don't build community by imposing on it. You build community by working alongside it, listening, amplifying their voices, building the trust so you can have long-term and sustainable change. That's where the community then it begins to embrace and own the changes that you're trying to create in your communities. And so you respect them. They're your partners, is how I see it. When I got back to Houston after I finished school, I had already worked in 6 different CDCs, community development corporations. And so I had that background. So when I got back home, I was practicing public finance work. And so I was building schools, building hospitals, just public infrastructure for public projects. And I was also doing a lot of nonprofit work. So I was board chair over at Project Row Houses, and, building community, with arts and other social service programming. And it was a great opportunity for me to really embrace our Houston fabric and what was needed, what the residents were saying they needed. So I eventually ran for and became one of the at-large city council members. And in that work was very responsive to community needs because I listen. You can't lead people unless you have an opportunity to listen to them. And the best way to listen to them is if you're present. And part of that is forging that relationship, being present, meeting people where they are. You don't expect them to, I didn't expect people to come to City Hall to come see me. I expected, to meet them where they were. So I will be, someone who has a lot of experience being present in communities. I've also been in Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee's office in her DC office 20 years ago. So I know the importance of being present because I've watched her, I've seen it, and been present for that. And also with when he was Mayor Turner, and I was a city council member. So I know of the uncanny ability to be everywhere all at once and, really treat each resident with dignity and respect, whether they invite you to a barbecue or they want you to come to a civic club meeting. It's about making the time and prioritizing the community needs. And then, of course, tailoring solutions, because you can do a lot of talking, but you've got to solve the challenges. So tailoring the solutions in a manner that actually is going to solve the challenges that they face. Meanwhile, as we're dealing with the challenges that we're going to face, we also have to seize opportunities. So what can happen in these communities is something that's always on my mind. I'm not just looking at how to respond, how to react. That's only half of the puzzle. The other part is how do we create what it is that can be and should be, and we haven't had a focus on yet. And so that's something I bring to the table. My background is I've got a public finance background in terms of my legal background, and I've got the city council background. So I saw on the ground where policies were falling short, where the gaps were. So I have some policy ideas, and I know how to put all those pieces of the puzzle together so that I can be effective as the next congresswoman for the district.
Now, you are in a very gerrymandered district. In fact, if you take a look at how that district looks, it's a very interesting district, right up to in the area where I live, all the way to the bottom. I mean, it's a very gerrymandered district, and it does have some very interesting problems, from environmental vulnerability and climate injustice problems, healthcare inequalities, education funding and inequality problems, economic inequality. I mean, it has a whole lot of issues that the district has. Now, you are going to be one of, 218 plus 217, one of 435 members in Congress. That means in order for you to get anything directed towards your district requires some sort of a skill in making alliances. How can your potential constituents feel about your ability to do that?
Absolutely. I was one of 16 council members, and that was, when I ran and served in that role, I was told I wasn't going to be able to get anything done. And we got plenty of things done around the city. And it was because you have to be creative in terms of finding ways to partner with people, finding ways to see the mutual benefit. And, we're in a difficult time in Congress right now. But it doesn't mean that there aren't spaces and places where people might have an interest in doing the right thing. For example, I don't know a Republican or a Democrat that wants to flood. I haven't met one yet. And so there are some places, I think, where there could be some mutual understanding and, not just starting from where we are different or not aligned.
Now, here's another issue. Right now, we have issues like whether we're becoming an oligarchy, whether we're coming, the DEI being revoked, etc. I'm not going to take the bait. A lot of these issues are there to simply have our eyes off the ball. They're very specific issues that concerns people in your districts and most districts. That is healthcare, and that is the ability as well to raise a family economically as well. What can you say that you will do to ensure that you form alliances to do just that? DEI is important. I'm not saying that becoming a fascist country is important, but if you have the will of the people, fascism wouldn't occur. So what would you suggest?
Well, you just highlighted my top two priorities, which is healthcare and economic opportunity. Those are the meat and potatoes issues that are the underpinning of what makes a family secure. And so if you don't have your health, you don't have anything, right? And so healthcare access is being peeled back as we speak. There was an executive order that President Trump signed to repeal or go back on the negotiated pricing for prescription drugs that were part of the Medicare changes that took place. That is a mistake. There are people in this community who have, before that prescription drug cost reduction, had to ration their prescription drugs because they couldn't afford it. That's unacceptable. We're in America. This is something that we can do better with, and we have to do better with. And it's a question of leadership. So being creative in trying to restore access to those reduced pricing, make sure that's there. Also, in terms of gaps within the Affordable Care Act, there are gaps. We didn't quite finish the job when the Affordable Care Act was enacted some years ago. And there are people who want to be small business owners, for example, and they are afraid because they don't want to not be accepted by their providers. And so we've got to figure this out and close those gaps in terms of the provision and access of healthcare. This is a personal issue to me. When I was growing up, my father was very ill. He had something called multiple myeloma, and he was diagnosed with it when I was 10. He died when I was a teenager. And so in his journey, I watched him, as he was navigating insurance and all of these things for his life-saving treatments. And I would ask him questions like, what happens if they say no to what he needed? And he would just say things like, well, we just have to figure something else out. And, those kinds of answers are a reflection of really life and death circumstances for a lot of people. And so we can't lead in a way that lacks urgency. We have to act with urgency because people's lives are in fact lying in the balance of the decisions that we make or the decisions that we choose not to make or the policies we choose not to pass. And so we've got to appeal to the greater good. And at the end of the day, it is, from a cost benefit analysis, it is much better to focus on providing access to care than having, all of this end of life covered, all of this end of life stuff that happens at the end when you have such a disjointed system that doesn't work for people. I would say from an economics opportunity standpoint, use the small businesses as an example. We have so many gaps right now in terms of our small businesses being able to access capital, scale their businesses. And so what can we do to help that? Microloans. There are just a variety of things and tools, getting dollars into the hands of financial institutions that are designed to lend at greater rates to women and minority small business owners who have lack access. These are things that can help us to get money in the hands of our small businesses in our communities, which of course is the bread and butter of our economy is small business. And so I'm a big proponent of that, and also making sure that people have access to educational tools so that they are prepared for the workforce not just today's workforce. We need them prepared for tomorrow's workforce. It's continuing to evolve. And so our focus and attention hasn't been on how do we make ourselves prepared for both today and tomorrow. We've just kind of been reactionary only on the issues, hot topic of the day. And we've got to get really focused with a clear vision on how everybody in the 18th congressional district will have the opportunity, not just to get by in the 18th. We want them to thrive in the 18th congressional. And that will be my priority.
I am a small businessman, and I know one of the things that happens to every small businessman, and you are vying to be the representative of a huge amount of young people that are very business minded, young people that are business minded. But one of the things that afflict them is that there's a definite tie between healthcare and owning a business. No other country in the world does a person have to think about healthcare being the limiting factor of them being able to have a business. In our country, unfortunately, that is the case. We have not, when I say we, I shouldn't say we as the person asking the questions, but Democrats as a whole have not really differentiated themselves from Republicans in seeking a just healthcare system that acknowledges that healthcare humanely should be a human right. And as such, we shouldn't have to have these machinations for healthcare. Will you explore? I mean, I'm not going to put, I will not put any congressperson on the spot to give somebody else a soundbite. I won't do that. My question is whether potential Congress people like you will be open to solutions that calculably points out that there are better ways of handling healthcare in its totality than we are doing it in a very inefficient and inhumane manner right now.
As a policymaker, you always have to be open to all ideas and all discussion points. That's part of being a good leader, is to take in the input and really analyze that and figure out what is the best solution. We're in this very complicated structure right now. And so, of course, you ended up with the Affordable Care Act as a kind of a compromise position, I suppose. But, ultimately, we were never supposed to just stop as it was, and it did. And then, of course, it was supposed to be something that was refined, improved, and then, explore other potential options. That was kind of the game plan. But when it became a hot topic and there were lawsuits everywhere, then it became a situation where nobody wanted to touch it because of the political fallout from it. And I think we can't think about the political fallout. I mean, you have to be aware of the political fallout, but you've got to also know that as you are delaying increasing access to coverage, that there are people whose lives are being lost. And that's something that's a real life issue. So, certainly I am open to exploring all of the possibilities of what is the best way to get as many people in our country, insured and healthy and having their health, and also from an economic standpoint, having their economic opportunity, which for many is being threatened as well.
They're intricately linked. Healthcare and economic viability, they're intricately linked. And again, I just want to make sure one thing. The thing that I find most concerning all of the times is that too many times the choices that are made are not necessarily made for the people in the community, but the business people. As a business person, the question really is, will you buck that trend?
I talked about it when I announced this is I'm not, an establishment candidate. I'm not anything but the people's candidate. That's who I am. This is what this work is about for me. And so I take it very personally that we get this right for our community members who don't want to just be exploited around the campaign season. And of course, their name, where they live, how to find them when you're needing something from them. But turn around when it's time to deliver, where to be found. That system and that that we have been perpetuating a system of exploitation and creating mistrust with the government because we've been overpromising and under-delivering. We've got to change that. And so I'm committed to being a part of that solution and being someone who, communicates honestly, effectively, and empowers the residents with the information they need to be their best advocates and to improve their communities. And so that's what you can expect to see from me. I consider community members to be my partners. So I cannot go and do this by myself. I don't get a cape, if elected. That's not how this works. I get a chance to serve in that seat and use the tools at the disposal, but you've got to have the power of the neighborhoods behind you and the community backing you.
Two more questions. Very
Yes,
important one. Your district is a very low performance district with respect to voter turnout.
Yes.
There are a lot of politicians within your district that have solid coffers that aren't, in my opinion, spending to put out and get the vote out. A true democracy means people are engaged and people want to be engaged. What are you going to do to make sure and bring those voters out? Because in what purports to be a crowded field, it seems like you're going to need a whole lot of voters coming out.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to hear themselves reflected in what you have to say. If you have a vision with them thriving in it, you got to spell that out and get them out and understanding that it's okay to trust again. It's okay to participate again. People are feeling very disconnected from this process. And so we've got to get them back on board. We've got to have honest, difficult decisions. Some of those decisions tie to why did people not show up back in November? We got to have those conversations. We can't just skip over why people are feeling disconnected from the status quo and from the establishment. And once we have those conversations, we start talking about, well, what are the solutions and how do we bring you in and how do we get you to trust this process again? Because obviously that's been abused.
So you are intended to bring those out. Last question. Your field is going to be full. There
Yes.
are quite a few people that are going to be running. How are you going to differentiate yourself? Because every single Democrat that is running in that race is going to have some standard bullet points that they're going to say. How are you going to differentiate yourself from them?
I think I am the candidate in this moment that is most needed in this district. And the reason that is so, not only do I bring the ability to fight back with Donald Trump in terms of the policies and the activity and the lack of regard for the rule of law, but separate from that, I'm also somebody who has a tremendous amount of experience, not just on having worked in Congresswoman Jackson Lee's office in DC, but also as someone who has been a public finance attorney. So I understand how funding projects work. And part of what you do when you are a congressional member, you're responsible for bringing some money home. You got to get some federal funding for your district. And so I understand that in a way that I think gives me a very strong advantage in terms of an ability to be effective in the role. I would also say, in addition to my experience there, city council, I was on the ground. I was identifying the problems as they arose, gaps in our housing policy, gaps in our disaster recovery policy, gaps in so many things that as a city council member, I was able to try to mitigate and address to some degree, but really and truly, there's a lot of deep-seated policy fixes that are needed. So you want somebody who's going to be a policy wonk like me, who will go to Washington and be willing to sponsor bills, co-sponsor bills, do that hard lifting, heavy lifting that will result in systems change. That's what's needed in a lot of our communities. And then finally, besides for being able to bring that experience from council and my public finance background, I also, from a neighborhood standpoint, this is personal to me. And I am someone who serves in a way that reflects that. And so I am present in the community. I believe in listening to the community and amplifying the vision of the community. And that is a different approach. Most people, it takes time. That's a lot more effort, but it's the right way to do things. And I think that people appreciate that. They know we may not always have the exact same, we may not always have an alignment on an issue, but you're always going to get the truth from me, and you're always going to get me to show up, and you're also going to get solutions from me. I would say that's the last piece, is the solutions. I'm someone who's brought about and demonstrated that I can bring innovative solutions to the table. With regard to tech and innovation, I led those efforts in the city. We didn't have investment in our startups, and so now we have an innovation district. We increased our investment in startups by exponentially, as a result of the work that we did. And so that's an example of that among many others. So I think if you're looking for somebody who's going to be able to fight, someone who knows how to hit the ground running on day one because of her experience, someone who's going to bring innovative solutions to the table, we cannot fight and go about things the same way as we always have, because these are different times and they call for different measures and different leaders. And I bring that type of leadership that I think the district needs.
How can they reach you?
www.edwardsforhouston.com is our website. I'm also on social media, so you can follow me on X, AK Edwards TX, or Facebook. You can follow me, Amanda K. Edwards TX, or Instagram, Amanda K. Edwards TX. And I have TikTok and all of the other things. So all the rest.
Thank you.
And Blue Sky.
I was about to ask you about Blue Sky.
We have Blue Sky. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Excellent. Anyway, folks, Amanda Edwards, she's running for historic district 18 congressional, the 18th congressional district, replacing Sheila Jackson Lee and Sylvester Turner. Thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. I want to welcome Paul Fleming from Atlanta, Georgia, Lady Bearcat from Austin, Texas. We also have Glenn Ryan from Katy, Texas in the house. Before I go to the phones, I want to, and by the way, the number is 713-526-5738. And by the way, it's corrected on the video as well. One of the users said, Egberto, why don't you fix that panel? I did. All right. Glenn Ryan is absolutely right. Glenn Ryan says, just say it, Egberto. Single payer is the only efficient way to do it, and stop toying around with it. In the perfect world, I wouldn't toy around with it. But let me tell you, when I'm doing interviews with candidates, I don't want to, in the form that I try to ask the questions, I don't want to give any opposing candidate, whomever it is, not taking any sides, whomever it is, I don't want to give a soundbite for any candidate to get ahead of where their district is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is important, I believe. I think the media does disservice by allowing itself to be used and become the news instead of actually getting things out. Let me just put it straight. I believe in single payer healthcare, Medicare for all, or healthcare for all, however you want to say it. Most Americans as well believe that. The voters in a particular district are many a times are made to fear what's best. That's what Trump has done with his voters in red states, in Appalachia, in pockets around. And a lot of that has to do with how the media has brought things to fore. So I try my best in the way I'm asking questions to get to substance and not sound bites. When it comes to on Substack, Mark KJ, thank you so kindly for being here, and thank you for what you said. She said, this is what Margie said to me. She said, you are wrong. The Dems have always tried to make healthcare more affordable and for everyone. Sure, they don't fight hard enough. President Obama sure didn't, but we have ACA. It is true that we have ACA. ACA, though, as you know, Glenn, you and I discussed this, ACA was a panacea for insurance companies. Yes, it made sure we could all get insurance. We couldn't get insurance at an affordable rate. And because a particular senator died, Kennedy died, we lost the cloture. We lost the ability to pass the remainder of the bill without filibuster, and we had to do it through reconciliation. And in doing so, there are many pieces that went unresolved. One example is the public option that I once said during the fight. We will not pass the ACA without the public option, because I knew that the public option would have turned the ACA into a single payer system. The insurance company paid off many Democrats, Miss Marg KJ. It paid off many Democrats to not support the public option. And when the bill came to the floor, there was no public option, which would have completely turned around this system. Medicare Advantage, even though it's not specifically a part of the ACA, and all the other ills of the ACA would have been mitigated by the public option. And it's not Republicans who killed that. It is Democrats who kill that. You are correct that Democrats are the more humane party, attempting to give more or support more for their constituents, but the 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 private sector, specifically the insurance companies, had too much power within the Democratic space, and to this date have too much power. You heard Amanda Edwards talk about the prescription drug plan that Donald Trump is fighting against. Hey, that's only 10 drugs. There are hundreds of drugs that are overpriced that you and me, all of us as a society, paid for these drugs. The initial research came from us. And then these charlatanes, these thugs, these legal thieves charge us what they will for these drugs. And we want to give Democrats a hand for putting 10 drugs on, making 10 drugs cheaper, and the next year another 10 or another 25 or whatever the law says. Why the hell not just go ahead and say we will stop this pilfer of the American people? You either reduce the prices or we nationalize the drug industry, which is already nationalized. The drug industry, most of the innovation comes from we the people's investment. And they capitalize on the profits after the drug becomes seemingly viable. So I hope you get what I'm saying, Miss Marge KJ. All right, let's go ahead and go to the phones, and let's go ahead and get to Harry. And by the way, the telephone number is 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Brother Harry, come on in.
Buenos dias, hermano, el profesor, Alberto Willis. Shout out to Jack. I know he's on the mend. Hopefully he'll be back in the morning lineup soon. And good morning to you again, Howard. I'm gonna talk about something that Brian said, and Patrick agrees with me on this because he said it on Mike Woodson's show. But before I get into that, I hope Amanda Edwards wins the 18th congressional district. And what you said earlier, Alberto, about making America great. You make America great by what Amanda Edwards was talking about, investing in people, small businesses. That's what makes America great when you do that, and that everybody has a chance, no matter what your ethnic background or your religious background is, that everybody, well, no matter what the color of your skin is, everyone has a chance in making this country great for everyone, so it works for everyone. I was listening to Bernie and AOC's rallies in Denver and Arizona, and they're just pushing back against oligarchism and fascism. A lot of things they said in those rallies are correct. But one thing I wanted to say, what Brian was talking about, I don't agree with people burning Elon Musk's Tesla cars. I don't agree with that, but it's really wrong for Brian to say that it's just the far left that's doing it. And Patrick agrees with me on this because I heard him tell Mike Woodson this, and he felt that Mike Woodson should have pushed back on Brian, saying that it's the far left that's burning these cars in Las Vegas and in Missouri. Last time I checked, Missouri is a red state. And so how do we know it's not some of these right-wing nut jobs that are also doing this? Because Donald Trump betrayed them. And as I said on your 3 o'clock show the other day, and Bernie said this at one of the rallies. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, how is a tax cut for the billionaires, for Jeff Bezos, for Mark Zuckerberg, for Elon Musk? How is that going to help you MAGA people that live paycheck to paycheck? You know, Donald Trump he stuck it to you. He lied to you. He and Elon Musk about all these things that he said he was going to do to help the MAGA people who are working people. Well, he's not. The person who's going to help you is Bernie Sanders and AOC. They're the ones that are going to help you so you're not living in a stressful life when you're working paycheck to paycheck, because they want single payer. That makes America great again. Also, what it does, if you get attacked, if the Democrats can get control, you have the right kind of Democrats, as Johnny's always talking about. Progressive-minded Democrats. You get those people elected. You can get a single payer. What Bernie Willis is always talking about, or Bernie Sanders, or Arnie Arnesen, and all the rest. That's what makes America great. When
Thank you, brother.
It helps everybody have a chance.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate your commentary. Let's go ahead and go to Brother Bruce. And folks, you too, sir. The number is 713-526-5738. 713-526-5738. Please give a call now before we run out of time, but I have another subject as well. Bruce, come on in.
Good morning, Alberto. George Foreman, rest in peace. When I saw the AOC and Bernie rallies, I thought we need to have more of those around the country, maybe even fill stadiums. In the way of the Million Man March, I'd like to see a Million Senior March and Walker Walk. And then tongue in cheek, I can make fun of seniors because I am one. If a young person does, look out for the cane. You could set up vending machines at the march with senior products in there. And as for what product, well, depends. The other thing I have is I have a new conspiracy theory. It has to be true because I made it up. Trump and Musk are going with measles, are going after people with measles because they saw the attorney ads on TV saying access these funds if you're a victim of mesothelioma. But anyway, I'm done. Sorry.
All right. Thank you so kindly, Bruce. You made me smile. Have a great day, my brother. Let's go to Johnny.
Oh, okay. I didn't start calling so soon. Listen, I just woke up a few minutes ago, so I missed practically all the interview with Amanda Edwards. So I've got two questions for you with regards to Amanda Edwards. Number one, did you ask her if she takes corporate dark or PAC money, and does she plan not to if she has? That's the first question.
I didn't ask about the corporate money. My assumption is that most of especially in that particular district, District 18, it's probably going to be a Washington corporate money, and I don't know. I did ask the question, Johnny.
Okay, and the other question is, did you ask her about white nationalist infiltration? How does she feel on the need to expose, dismiss, and prosecute white nationalists from our military as well as law enforcement across the country? Did you ask her anything related to that?
No, let me explain. I didn't ask her about DEI. I didn't ask her about fascism, and in fact, I stated specifically why I didn't. Because there are two things that there are two big issues. There are the national issues like fascism, DEI, and all those things, and then there are the issues that affect that district specifically. What the Trump, in my humble opinion, Trump administration has been doing is flooding the zone with all these big issues, right? That doesn't go to what really affects people. And while you and I and many others are fixated on DEI and fascism and all of that, which are absolutely real issues, but national issues, I wanted to kind of stay specific to the district-based issues, knowing that we are always going to be tackling those major ones. So that's the interview was 24 minutes long. And I wanted to put it into a context that would fit in our radio format, but at the same time, I wanted to not nationalize that particular issue. Go ahead, my brother.
Okay, I did catch the part where you said you did not want to give sound bites to people on the other side, and I can't disagree with that. But what you just told me right now, you just gave the other side a sound bite. You just said that they're not fixated like you and I are. You and I are not fixated on DEI. The other side is fixated on DEI, and the fact that they say DEI rather than spell it out literally what it means is an indication of where they fall. They are the ones with the problem, not us. We just respond to what they do. We don't bring Trump every day because we hate Trump. We don't like Trump's policies, and every day he says or does something that's antithetical to the existence of this country. So what are we supposed to do? Say nothing and stay
No, no,
silent?
no, no.
Like
I don't. If Johnny, if my words came over blaming us for being fixated on the issue, that was not the intent. These are major issues that we have to tackle. It's just the way.
one last
Go ahead, finish. Go ahead.
I know, I understand it, Roberto. Trust me, I love you.
Okay.
One
No, no,
last
I know.
second.
I know, brother. I know. I know. I just wanted for the greater audience to realize that you are correct. That these are absolutely important issues, but in a fixed amount of time, we have to find ways to do all of this at once, and that's what I'm trying.
Real quick, because I want to make room for everybody else who wants to speak to you. If our time traveler from the other side, Brian, if he should call you today, ask him a question that I was dying to ask him Friday, but I didn't get a chance on the other show because I got cut off at the last minute. Brian said, this kind of shocked me. He said he expressed shock and or disagreement with the violence. He says violence is not an answer. I think he said something to the effect when the conversation about torching perfectly serviceable electric cars at dealerships. He was against that. But why did he not talk about violence is wrong on January 6th? I would like him to categorically say that violence on January 6th committed by his party, his people, his tribe was also wrong. I want him to say that. And in case I don't get the call back, I'd like for you to bring that up if he should call you today.
By the way, let me just tell you that Patrick already on the on my 3 o'clock show, after he heard my response to Brian, he called and said, like, Berto, I need to call in and call you out. And I said, well, do it right now, my brother. And he called in and he said, you did not answer Brian correctly. How does Brian have evidence that these things are being done by the left? Does he? What evidence? You should have first asked, what evidence do you have? To which I had to put my tail between my legs and say, oh, Patrick, you're absolutely right. But that's why I have the smartest callers to this show, because you guys can always where I miss, you guys are always there to pick me up. Anyway, anything else? Anything else, Johnny?
Yes, sir. We have your backs. We'll always have your backs. And Brian, wake up, buddy boy. Wake up and smell the coffee, so to speak. Be woke, not brain dead and asleep at the wheel.
Hey, Johnny, we're going to make brother Brian woke. Brian is a good guy. He just doesn't know it yet. But anyway, thank you, bro, Johnny. Have a good one.
Right.
All right, let's go to Augie. Come on in, Augie.
Good morning. Yeah, this last weekend last week I went to Virginia, and driving back, I got here late Thursday morning, like 6:15 and 6:30. But I turned on KPFT so I could hear your voice again and see what's going on. And I saw Biden's legacies. I was driving back from North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. There's road construction going on in every state because of Biden. And they used to have some bad roads. I drove to Birmingham, Alabama one time, downtown by the expressway. And I was curious why there was no traffic on that road as it goes through that middle of downtown. And then I started hitting all these potholes on that road. And then a couple of years later, I was on an airplane with some college girl coming in from Colorado going to Alabama, and she lived outside of Birmingham. and asked her, "Have they fixed those potholes yet?" And she said, "Well, we got a saying it in Alabama: our roads are bad, but Georgia and Mississippi are worse." And I think that was during the last Trump administration. And she said that. Well, it looks like those potholes are getting fixed because of Biden and not anything the Republicans did. And the Republicans voted against that infrastructure bill that Biden had, but they're taking credit for it now that the construction is being done. And yeah, and I was going to call you about Brian, but I fell asleep again after listening to your show. Yeah,
Well,
yeah, about Brian too. Like it was said, they call us haters and all that, but their language is speaking with explosive bullets and guns. One of the January 6th guys that had his painted face and the fur hat with the horns, he got pardoned by Trump. And the first thing he said when he got released is, "I'm going to go get some more effing guns." And I think about all the times when I was on Fund Drive and I worked at tables and we got calls from right wingers. You know, they'd give us their say, but then they hang up before you could reply. And so they can give it out, but they sure can't take it. They're really thin-skinned.
you
But
know
they,
what is interesting? What I from what you're driving, you when you driving back from Virginia, you just named a whole bunch of red states. You just named a whole lot of construction happening, etc. Your one commentary did more than anything that was said in all these races around the country over and over again. That is, all those jobs you guys are having, all that construction that's putting money in your pocket right now, came from the policies of the Biden administration and the IRA, the infrastructure bill, and the CHIPS Act, and all these other bills that were passed. And nobody quite understand that that is the kind of bills you get under a Democratic administration, and under a Republican administration, all we're talking about is cutting, austerity, etc. There's a book out by I don't remember the name of the author, talks about abundance. Democrats need to continue the preaching abundance and passing policies of abundance, because we have abundance in this country. It's just distributed to all the wrong people, the folks who don't produce anything. But anyway, I got to go to Brian and then close this baby out. So let's go ahead, Augie, and we'll talk tomorrow, okay?
all right, thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day. All right, Brian, come on in. And you were online as Johnny was giving you some kudos. Anyway, talk to me.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Hey, Jack, I hope you're feeling okay. So hope you're here listening. Many years ago, I was renting a place near Aldine Westfield and Hardy Toll Road, and I had a custom pistol. I needed some more work done, and there was a gun shop nearby. And I went through, and going there to my left was George Foreman's boxing club, and I had to drop the gun off, and I came back. I went inside, and believe it or not, there was George Foreman. I was talking to two young black girls. And the first thing that I noticed, he was a giant. And I walked over and I talked to him. I spoke to him. I shook his hand, and his hands were soft, like a banker's hands, but there was power in them. And he was speaking to me, and I don't remember exactly what he was saying, but he was a man of conviction in his religion. And he was a very soft-spoken individual and had a genuine personality. And Houston lost a great man.
Wow,
Really,
Brian, I want to thank you for that. As I am talking online, I'm watching the memorial to George Foreman, and I didn't mention it. I didn't quite know how to mention it. I can't say it any better than you just did. And you are correct. I met him as well. In right here in Kingwood actually, and he was a giant. When he turned his life around, he really he really helped out a whole lot of people. So thank you for that, Brian.
Yeah. So, and no, you're not going to change my mind about how I think either.
I don't want to change your mind. Wait, Brian, you missed the point. I don't want to change your mind about how you think. I'm not trying to turn you into a left winger or anything like that. I'm just trying to let you look at things the way they really are. Look, when I came to this country, I had to change because I realized a lot of my values were wrong. But people spent the time, the energy, and effort, and they gave me that thing called grace to be able to change. If you are unchangeable, then you have a problem. If you open your mind to say, you know what, Egberto, I am no pinko liberal or Democrat or whatever, but on that point, you're right. That is where I want folks to be. You could actually change me, Brian. You could actually come up with something that I'm wrong about, and I will be willing to listen. You got to be right, but I would be willing to listen, and that's all we're asking of you as well. Anything else, Brian, before we close the shop?
Yeah, just watch the movie on YouTube, The Fall of Minneapolis. That will change your mind.
No. I saw the movie. Let me tell you something, okay? You can't believe something that is framed for propaganda. But we'll talk another time because I gotta go. But thank you, Brian, and thank you for that foreman testimonial. You have a wonderful day. All right.
Yeah, thanks, bye.
All right, good one. All right, let me throw it to the studio, Howard.
Oh, nothing here. Go ahead and take it home.
All right, great. Anyway, folks, I want to thank you guys for listening. I wanted to talk about things that Democrats should do relative to AI and all these other issues, but of course, you come first. We ran out of time. That said, all this stuff is at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. If you want to email directly to me, go to kpft@politicsdoneright.com. kpft@politicsdoneright.com. I respond to all my emails. My name is, first of all, love you all. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. The U.S. Supreme Court